I mean, so much has happened in this country, from the assassination attempt to the pushing of Joe Biden out, which everyone admits. And now we have this woman who's been elevated to the position of the Democratic nomination without one single vote. And she hasn't sat down yet. The idea that she's not even sat down to talk about the assassination attempt and the problems with the Secret Service and the problems that are plaguing Americans right now, that she was the vice president during this time. She wasn't just, a senator off in the background. She was a part of this administration, everything that the country is facing right now.
Donald Trump sits down with Elon Musk, and Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, who refuse to take any questions or refuse to talk to the media, they put out a fundraising email being like, this is dangerous, this is a threat to democracy. So changing headlines and actually putting out disinformation is totally fine. But sitting down with someone and having an open conversation on a public platform is a threat to democracy.
All right, guys, it is Thursday. This is one of my favorite days because tomorrow's Friday, and that's my favorite day. And then we kick off the DNC. I mean, what an amazing August if you're a political junkie. We have had nonstop action. We've got a great panel together for you today. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this. It is going to be great. And then tomorrow, by the way, a quick reminder, we're going to go through the map to 270. As you guys know, a lot has been changing. How does Donald Trump get to 270 electoral votes? What are the paths? How close could it be? You'll have to wait and find out. Get your pen and pencil out right now. And just a quick reminder, it's always helpful if you can be part of this premiere at 6 o'clock. It really helps juice the algorithm, how those crazy Silicon Valley people. So if you can watch the show at 6 o'clock as we're premiering, super helpful to the show. Also, feel free to tell friends, text them and be like, hey, guess what I'm watching? You should watch too. Click that link and join us at 6 o'clock. Of course, it's always good whenever you get a chance to watch, but 6 o'clock is that perfect time. I want to tell you about one of our great sponsors. You never know what you can expect in life. That's why I have a Patriot Power Generator 2000X in my house. 4patriot.com/Spicer is where you can go to get yours. But I'm telling you, you never know when crazy things are going to happen. An attack on the electrical grid, a natural disaster, power goes out. Maybe it's just an hour or two, maybe it's a day, maybe it's a week, or it could even be a month. The bottom line is you want to be prepared. And the cool thing about a Patriot Power Generator 2000X is you don't need gas. Most people think about that, right? You don't realize until that time of emergency, you have to find a place that has gas. You have to hope that they can actually process your credit card. And then you have to go back and forth every few hours. Patriot Power Generator 2000X runs completely on solar panels that come free with it. Where are you going to get a deal like that? And the cool thing is it's powerful enough to run things like your refrigerator, your tablets, your computers, medical devices, everything that keeps your kids occupied. Plus it's portable. You can bring it to a family member, you name it. This is what you want. Get it now before it's too late. Be ahead of the curve. Be the person that says, hey, guess who saved us in a time of emergency? It was you. Yeah, be that guy. Be that girl. Go to 4patriots.com/Spicer to get yours. All right. I want to show you something that I thought was interesting. I don't spend a lot of time playing CNN clips, as you guys know, but I want to play an interaction that the now Kamala Harris, who used to be Biden's, but then once Biden got pushed out, well, we already talked about that. I want to play a clip that he had with one of my favorite people over there, Jim Acosta. Let's take a look at that clip and show you how that back and forth went.
Would it kill you guys to have a press conference? Why hasn't she had a press conference?
Listen, the vice president and Governor Walz have been busy crisscrossing this country since the launch of this campaign and adding Governor Walz to the ticket. You saw the ways in which they went across the battleground states last week, generating rallies of thousands, 10,000 here, 15,000 there. But
Michael, a campaign rally is not a press conference.
It's going to be inclusive.
Do you mind if I cut in? I mean, a campaign rally is not a press conference. Why hasn't she had a press conference? She's the vice president. She can handle the questions. Why not do it?
We absolutely are going to do it. You hear her take questions as she's out on the stump. And she said last week, we're going to be having a sit-down interview here before the end of the month. What she's going to be focused on and what this campaign is going to be focused on is communicating directly with the voters that are actually going to decide the pathway to 270 electoral votes. That's why she and Governor Walz
to a press conference
went across
this week?
the country this past week. That's why we're doing a bus tour in Pennsylvania as we head into Chicago. And it's why we'll sit down for an interview before the end of the month to make sure that we can have a deep dive conversation about the vision that Kamala Harris has for where she wants to take this country and the contrast that we're going to have with Donald Trump. We're going to have plenty of opportunities to do that. throughout the
Michael,
rest of
but one interview by the end of the month.
This month and throughout the rest of the campaign.
I don't want to belabor this, but one interview before the end of the month. I mean, that's not a lot. I mean, can you commit to a press conference before the end of the month?
We will commit to directly engage with the voters that are actually going to decide this election. And that is going to be complete with rallies, with sit-down interviews, with press conferences, with all the digital assets that we have at our disposal.
I wish that Jim Acosta was in the White House when I was. Let's bring in the panel to discuss. Julie Gunlock, the better half of O'Connor Company on WMAL in Washington every day. Grace Curley up there in Boston on the radio, the host of the Grace Curley Show and a columnist for the Boston Herald. And then Tom LoBianco, who is a political reporter and founder of 24 Site News. You can get that on Substack. Great reporting there from Tom and his colleagues. He's also a veteran of CNN, Yahoo, and the Associated Press. Tom, I want to start with you. What's up with the kid gloves? Why is it so like? Could you maybe do one? Where was that Jim Acosta when he was in the White House? I wanted that one. The cute little cuddly Jim Acosta. Could you please do a press conference in the next month or so? Oh, so could maybe in a month? Oh, please. I don't remember that Jim Acosta.
Yeah, I don't think you were ever on the receiving end of that one.
Why? What is up with the why? And not just Acosta. Where's the outrage from your colleagues that democracy is under attack? No one's talking to the media.
It's out there, and I made this point a couple times, in the newsletter, our 24/7 newsletter over at 24site.news. And I've also talked about this in a couple of additional interviews. They can't do this forever. Harris,
why not? Why not? They're getting away with it now.
Cannot keep running away from this.
But they can. I mean, I don't. But you guys and I apologize. I'm not trying to say you guys collectively, but you're the bona fide journalist here. Unless Julie wants to jump in and be part of this.
Look, all I'll add is I don't know why they can't keep this up. They can. They have been. And the idea. I mean, so much has happened in this country, from the assassination attempt to the pushing of Joe Biden out, which everyone admits. And now we have this woman who's been elevated to the position of the Democratic nomination without one single vote. And she hasn't sat down yet. I mean, again, aside from that, the idea that she's not even sat down to talk about the assassination attempt and the problems with the Secret Service and the problems that are plaguing Americans right now, that she was the vice president during this time. She wasn't just, a senator off in the background. She was a part of this administration. Everything that the country is facing right now, she should be answering for. And so when you say, this can't last, I don't know why it can't. The media's
right. And just to be clear, none of us want that, right? I mean, we all are. But if I knew I could get away with what I see these guys getting away with it, I'd be like, I mean, I remember one point I was having a conversation with one of my bosses that I was staffing. And I was like, oh, this is how long the interview is going to go. And he was just like, why? And I'm like, well, because that's what they said. And it was early. And I was just like, I realized I could push back. Like, what were they going to do to us? And Grace, the thing is, I don't want this to happen. And I think we want to be clear to listeners. But here's the funny thing. You saw little cutie Jim Acosta coming out. That was Jimmy Acosta, by the way. And if you know that Jimmy Acosta is going to be using kid gloves, why are you afraid? I mean, the headlines from most of these places, they're on your side. Check the box. It's not like these guys already got rid of Biden. They don't want Trump. They're going to take care of you. Wink, nod.
Right. That's the part. It's not just that she's terrified or she doesn't think she's equipped to take questions from the media. It's that she's terrified and doesn't think she's equipped to take questions from a media that is so completely in the bag for her. And that's the part of it that should really frighten people because, and Mark Hemingway pointed this out today on The Federalist, if this is a woman who is so afraid of how she's going to answer things in front of a fawning press, what does that make you think about what she's going to be able to do when she's meeting with our adversaries or actually in charge of running the country, the leader of the free world? And I want to go back to that point about why wouldn't she do it? I keep thinking of it. there's this quote, and I don't know where it's from, but a lot of women use it, where it's like, you attract the love that you think you deserve in a relationship. So if you set your standards low for a relationship, then the man you're dating, and I'm using stereotypical gender here for like man, woman, heterosexual relationship, but typically it's like if a woman sets her standards very low and a man knows he can get away with not taking her out to dinner or not treating her right, he's going to continue to do that. And to Julie's point, in 2020, they basically ran the same playbook, and the American people, let's let that be the girlfriend in this situation, the American people let them do it. The American people said, sure, you don't have to take me out to dinner. Sure, you don't have to answer any of my questions. You don't have to treat me with respect, and I'll keep dating you. And so until the American people say, sorry, you didn't show up with flowers, you didn't show up for dinner, you're not getting my vote, it's over, I don't think they're going to do anything differently.
Well, here,
all right. Well, Tom, can I just ask you this? I'm not sure if you're the girlfriend but I think the American people might want it, but the press corps, if they're the girlfriend or the boyfriend in this situation, they're saying, we'll give you a pass.
Well, I'm not giving a pass here, and I don't see other reporters giving a pass. And let me go back.
Wait, hold on. Listen, just to be clear, you don't think and again, it's not you. You guys write a newsletter. This isn't, but you don't think that they're getting a pass? They just put her on the cover of Time magazine.
Yes.
They put her on the cover of Time magazine without an interview. They didn't even. I mean,
they admitted it. They admitted it in the story. They actually said, we tried, but she wouldn't comment.
But because of that, we're just going to put a great cover on, a beautiful picture of you in your absence. Tom, I got to admit.
What it does is it creates a problem politically for them that they're going to have to address. And look, in all things campaigns, we all know this, in all things campaigns, it's messaging, it's communicating. And if you have a singular storyline that sticks, that becomes a problem. And I just don't see how they can avoid it. And
but he said, right, so he could have punted on that, her spokesman. And he said, by the end of the month, we'll do an interview, not a press conference. So you have, it is, hold on.
2 weeks.
It is
August 14th.
It is the 15th. It is the 15th of October.
Yeah.
She's got 2+ weeks to do an interview.
They need to do more. I mean, look, here's what I would say as a somewhat removed observer, somebody who follows this stuff professionally. And I've said this many times over the years. I always think about Elizabeth Warren back in 2017, and she would have her staff run interference on us physically. I mean, it's like blocking and tackling with, little 120-pound, deputy comm staffers, blocking and tackling. And you can see me, I'm a pretty big dude, like keeping us away in the Senate hallways from asking your simple questions, any kind of question. And, granted, that might be what the principal wants at that moment, but it left her incredibly ill prepared for running for president 2 years later, because she didn't know how to answer these things. And it reminds me a lot of how Michael Tyler was handling those questions. Those were not good deflections. Those were not good parries. Somebody who actually, and you know this, Spice, like somebody who actually engages with the press routinely, learns how to talk with the press routinely, develops some rapport, understands things. And frankly, I think they're harming themselves by putting themselves in a bubble.
Well, but the press is, if I were Michael Tyler, and I hate that I have to say this, but I mean, if I'm him, I look at her and say, okay, you do no interviews, you get the cover of Time, they fawn over us, they write all the stories that we want, they deflect for us and talk about, how our changing positions are okay because we've evolved or whatever. Doing an interview just has a ton. I mean, considering how she handles herself off teleprompter, it's all downside, right? But the thing that I find funny, Tom, is that during the tail end of the Trump administration, several media outlets said we're going to boycott, or they potentially wondered out loud, should we boycott press briefings because they're full of disinformation and blah, blah, blah. So even though they were being provided information, they didn't like it. And they said, maybe we should boycott this. Here you have the opposite. The candidate saying, I refuse to talk to you. And yet they're all writing great stories. Why isn't there a media outrage that says, fine, you don't want to talk to us? We're not going to write about you until you engage with at least someone in our ranks.
Grace, I don't know if you have sorry, I don't know if you have a point. I just wanted to remind everyone, the Cleve Woodson Washington Post reporter, that is a perfect example of what you're talking about, Sean, that it is not just that, they're okay not getting an interview and they're going to patiently wait and they're going to ask politely. It's that they actually do want some amount of censorship on platforms that provide information that they don't like, that goes against the narrative that they are feeding the American public. I mean, it is Nina Jankowicz within, it's like, the call's coming from within the House. It's like they're willing to demand this of their own industry. So the problem here is so profound. I just don't think in my lifetime, it's sad to say, I just can't imagine. I mean, thank God for alternative media. Thank God for you. Thank God for some of the, the radio programs that we all represent. And I think we do see it in some of these news outlets failing and flailing and losing readership and listenership. So, but I think the problem is just so deep and profound that I don't think it's going to be fixed anytime soon.
I was thinking about this because not only is she not engaging, but then when the campaign writ large engages, she doesn't stand by what she said before. She's not for fracking anymore. She's not for Medicare for all anymore. She's not for giving citizenship. I mean, right? One of the things that Dan Crenshaw, the congressman from Texas, former Navy SEAL, put out that I thought was really interesting is he said the only correct response when Kamala Harris makes a campaign promise is, why don't you do it right now? Don't let anyone forget that this widely unpopular administration and their widely unpopular policies are hers to own. Grace Curley, that's the thing, is that she wants to pretend she's not vice president right now. For the longest time, it wasn't the Biden administration. They made it very clear from the jump. It was the Biden-Harris administration, and now she's like, what are you talking about? Who's that old guy? I don't know him.
Right. I compare it to like the friend you have in school who will be friends with you, but then when you get into the cafeteria, they're like, I can't sit with you. Like, I can't sit with you. It's okay that we're friends in math class, but we're not friends in the cafeteria. She wants people to forget that she's been vice president for 4 years. But then the other weird part of that, Sean, is that all this pomp and circumstance and the entire reason that she was able to get to this point where she's essentially being coronated or she's essentially being selected and kind of ascended into this position is because she's vice president. As Julie pointed out, she never would have been able to do this in a traditional sense. She never would have been able to win this. We saw in 2020, she didn't get a single vote. So the entire reason that she's in the position she's in is only because she's vice president. But then ironically, she's trying to distance herself from the whole thing. But I love what Tom was saying about how these questions, the media and the Harris campaign, they're not equipped to handle these questions. They don't get them very often. It's the Toranto effect. It's like if you coddle these people and you never expect them to have to answer for themselves, when they do occasionally get a question, they will crumble. And I agree with that, except for the fact that there are no hard questions. Like, this is what drives me the most crazy. You never get these people to answer questions. You never get Kamala Harris. You never get Joe Biden to answer questions. On the off chance, and I watch it all, so I know that there's like once in a blue moon, they get a chance to ask a question. They ask the dumbest questions. It's like, why don't you tell us how much you hate Donald Trump? Right. Kamala, like they finally get her on the tarmac and they're like, tell us why Trump's bad. And I'm like, that's what you're waiting for? With all
Are you great or awesome? Are you great or awesome or awesomer?
It drives me crazy.
All right, before I get to the next topic, I want to tell you guys really quick because there's something really interesting. We're talking about government and policies. One of the things that's fascinating about retirement is right now, if you think about it, everything in retirement is controlled by the government. If you have an IRA or 401k, they tell you how much you can put in, when you can take it out, how much you can take out. There are alternatives, though, and I think that's important. If you've got a 401k or an IRA, you've got to know that it's your money and that there's an alternative. The bank on yourself method, though, is a proven retirement alternative that lets you bypass Wall Street and the government. With bank on yourself, you get guaranteed predictable growth. That's something that you don't always get, right? In a 401k or an IRA, the guesswork is gone. You get tax-free retirement income. Think about that. You'll know what your tax rate will be in retirement, which is zero. Under the current tax law, it protects you from the incoming tax tsunami that we all know is coming at one point or another. And you're in control. You get access to your money for any reason. And it doesn't matter, which is not the case with an IRA or a 401k. And you get the peace of mind. You'll know the minimum guaranteed value of your retirement savings on the day that you plan to tap into them. That is so different than what's going on. And it's something that most people just don't know is available to them. Everyone wants to tell you about an IRA or a 401k. Those are government controlled. You can be in the driver's seat of your own retirement with the Bank on Yourself method. You can get a free report with all the details on how the Bank on Yourself strategy adds guaranteed predictability and control to your financial plan. Just go to bankonyourself.com/Spicer. That's bankonyourself.com/Spicer to find out about this alternative. All right, the next thing that I really wanted to get into, and I've been waiting to do this because I wanted to have the time to really understand the issue and then get into this. This tweet that came out from Axios about, and I want to read you what Jim Vandehei, who's the CEO and leader of Axios, put out. He said the Harris campaign has been editing news headlines and descriptions within Google search ads that make it appear as if The Guardian, Reuters, CBS News, and other major publishers are on her side, Axios has found. So, I mean, there's a lot of things to break down in here. Like, why did Axios, blow the whistle? Part of me is thinking because they weren't getting a piece of the action. It's just funny. I mean, I'm being serious. Tom, you're laughing. Why did Axios blow the whistle? Huh?
That's how it works.
I mean, do you really think? I wonder. I was
That's why I'm laughing.
I mean, but the thing that was so funny is were they just pissed? They were like, hey, I look at this chart. We'll put it up on the screen that they put out, and it's everybody but them.
I'm laughing because there is such a marketing aspect to this. But yes, I mean, look, Vandehei going out there and saying that, I mean, this is a level, we've seen in traditional campaign ads, this is what typically happens is you take the headline. This is, Spice, this is why you talk to us over the years to get these stories written. So then you cut the headline out, now you Photoshop it and whatnot. And then you splash that across, like 1 second in a 30-second spot. This is different. I haven't seen this before.
Explain to people though why. So like I would normally work with you or another reporter and say, hey, there's a great story here, or we got a great hit on Biden. Here's what I have for backup on this. You write the story up, and then I push the story out because I like it, right? But I put it out entirely. Explain what is different about what they're doing here.
They're taking straight news stories that we've written and just rewriting them to say things that maybe they do or do not say, but it's under our banner. God. And it's deceptive. It's incredibly deceptive. I mean, I haven't seen this before.
Julie Gunlock, you're shaking your head. Isn't that misinformation?
Where is Nina Janowitz? Okay, I keep bringing Nina Janowitz up here, but I think I'm
remind people who she is.
So Nina Janowitz was
supercalifragilisticexpialidocious. She was the Mary Poppins
when you do it. She was appointed as the head of basically misinformation at the Department of Homeland Security, given the power to shut down certain speech, right? If she determined, and this was the big question, does Nina Jazz Hands decide what's misinformation, what's disinformation, however you want to say it? It was nuts. And of course, the right appropriately objected. Republicans in Congress objected, and she left. She resigned, and they got rid of the office. But the absolute absurdity of that and audacity of that, that was sort of a part of this, battling misinformation, and again, putting the power in the hands of this one woman. But I think about this. This was an idea created, curated, and pushed by the Democrat Party. This is the party that told us for years that Biden was perfectly fine, that the videos of him were cheap fakes, that you should not believe what you're seeing on screen. It wasn't until the debates where it was just undeniable and getting to the point of, even Nancy Pelosi was like, we gotta cut this off. But this, what we're seeing here is shocking to me. I mean,
but this is, you bring up Nina Janowitz. This isn't like a baller. I mean, this isn't like a gray area, right? That was what I objected to before, and I think you guys would all agree, is that there's a government official that's trying to decide something. This is them, as Tom just said, changing headlines and stories under the banner of the Washington Post, the Associated Press, CNN, and saying, here's them, and then them posting it. That's disinformation at its very core. That is fake news. That is fake news.
It is. I'm sorry, Grace, you wanted to get in here.
No, I agree with both of you, but you know what's amazing to me, and my boss, Howie Carr, has an expression about like government hacks. He always says, they don't just eat from the trough. They lick the plate clean. Like, in other words, it's never enough. It's never enough. And the reason I bring that up is because when you think about the coverage that this administration gets or this campaign gets to begin with, it's kind of amazing that given the wet kisses that they constantly receive from the media, that they still were like, you know what? We need more. Let's go in and edit these up. Yes. And honestly, when I was seeing the headlines that they edited from NPR and Reuters and all these outlets that are now saying like, oh, that's not right to edit our headlines, I'm like, I've seen you guys write worse ones than that. I've seen you write ones that are more propaganda-esque than the ones that they rewrote. So that part to me is like, how greedy are you that you get all of this wonderful press and it's still not enough?
And also the idea that Kamala is doing this, and kind of what Sean was saying earlier, that the media reaction is like, oh gosh, could you guys not do that? That's bad, right? It's not like, how dare you rewrite.
But if there was a campaign ad, do you know how many times a campaign ad runs and there is a clip of NBC News or a story from 24 Site News, and it's being used, and they will send a cease and desist and saying, do not put us. Yes. And I don't understand that, Tom. Where's this to me, this is, I want to read you guys the reaction. Spokespeople for brands. This is Axios' reporting, calling them brands. I love that. This is their reporting. Spokespeople for brands such as CNN, USA Today, and NPR, like it's like Kleenex, General Mills, and Heinz Ketchup, whose links appeared in Harris for President ads, said they were unaware their brand was being featured this way. Like, this isn't a cookie. This isn't like, hey, our potato chips, how did they end up in that ad? Like, we didn't give you permission. This isn't like product placement. What is going on? There's no denial. There's no, hey, we told them to stop. I think this is like Grace's point. Yeah. They were probably like, hey, that was a good job. They rewrote it really well.
Well, they should. I mean, I would send a cease and desist if somebody's flatly misrepresenting what I'm writing over here. Absolutely, they should. I mean, I do think you would send one
if they were using your publication to imply an endorsement. Wouldn't you send one to begin with and said, we are not? I mean, that's standard. And now they're actually twisting it. They're lying about what you wrote.
I think what you're seeing here is, especially as Sophia Kai, great reporter, she's been doing some great work on the trail this cycle over at Axios, wrote that, saw a ton of engagement on that story a couple days ago when it first started percolating. And I think we are seeing that with Van High. I mean, Van High is no slouch. I mean, this guy is...
Well, but I think he was pissed.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. Glenn Greenwald wrote this. So Sarah Fischer, the media reporter at Axios, puts out this Sophia Kai story that you're talking about, right? And then this is what Glenn Greenwald, who used to be at The Intercept, right? He's on Substack now, got a great, calls balls and strikes all the time. He wrote, Axios reporter takes back its negative reporting on Kamala Harris after she was attacked and then pretended her investigation was no big deal. Right. And this is, I'm trying to find the line here where basically this is what she wrote. She said, this is Sarah Fischer now. It's common practice in the commercial advertising world that doesn't violate Google's policies, but the ad mimics real news results from search enough that they have news outlets caught off guard. Basically, Axios, once they got blowback from Harris's team, said, all right, we'll explain why it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
Oh, well, that's no good.
No.
Shouldn't be doing that. Don't back off a story. Come on.
But not just
you wrote
the story.
It, that's right.
The story was the story. They're still, they're not backing off their reporting. They're basically saying, look, what she's doing is not that big of a deal. Here's why it's okay. And I mean, they soften the blow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They shouldn't be doing
to
that.
Julie's point that she's on the money about if this were reversed, if this were the Trump team, it would be like, we need a blue ribbon commission, release the transcripts. How did this go down? We need to start a certain agency that can lead this up so this doesn't happen. It would be wall to wall coverage about how this is a threat to democracy and this is why we need to, disband, like all these things. And if you
fascism.
and if you tie it back to Elon Musk, which is another point you were making, Donald Trump sits down with Elon Musk and Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, who refuse to take any questions or refuse to talk to the media, they put out a fundraising email being like, this is dangerous. This is a threat to democracy. So changing headlines and actually putting out disinformation is totally fine. But sitting down with someone and having an open conversation on a public platform is a threat to democracy. It's the upside down world. It makes no sense.
It really is. It's complete madness. It's really hard to sort of analyze it because it is so crazy. I just interviewed Seth Dillon at the Babylon Bee, and it was the funniest thing. He said it is getting harder to come up with headlines because the world is so absurd. Yeah. It's like we can't beat it. We literally can't beat the absurdity of the world.
I think it's like the Hollywood writers that are like, hey, we have this, or it's like a fiction writer being like, I've got this great idea. So we're going to talk about a presidential race. The president gets pushed out and people being like, that could never happen. And now it's like, you got to button up your ante. But let me get back to something that's really interesting as we get into the couple days before the DNC starts. The Media Research Center came out with a brand new poll that they did. And I want to read this to you. It said that the poll finds that large majorities of registered Democrats and independents who voted for Joe Biden in 2020, exactly those who would be expected to vote for Vice President Kamala Harris in this year's contest, are mostly in the dark about many of the controversial radical positions Harris has taken. And they list issue after issue and say, did you know any about this, about Harris? And well over 70% of respondents on all these key issues say, we didn't know that was her position, or we don't know anything about her position on that. She truly is a blank slate. So let me just go around the horn right now. And seriously, I want to ask you this. Objectively speaking, if you're her team, do you want to paint a picture of who you are? Or do you want to be everything to everyone, Grace?
I would say that her career has been being everything to everyone. But I also think, and I was just actually talking with someone about this, I think that it depends on the moment that she's in. So like when she was a prosecutor, I think the Democrats were a little bit harder on crime. So she thought, I'll be hard on crime. And then during 2020, she noticed that the winds were changing to be a little bit more progressive. So she was more progressive. Now she knows she has to be a little bit more moderate in order to get in there, to get into the White House. So maybe she'll be more moderate. But I mean, when you read me that and you say that people don't know, it's a weird thing because I might not agree with everyone's criticisms of Trump when I watch like CNN or MSNBC, or if I talk to someone who's very liberal, but I always know what story they're referring to. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's the lack of even understanding where these things come from. So if you said, do you know her position on the BLM riots, or do you know her position on fracking, for people to say, I didn't know that about her. It's a real failure on the part of the media, because you might say to me, I don't like what Donald Trump said about verifying people on both sides. I know what you're talking about. I know it's fake news. I know how it's been manipulated, but I know the content, and I know the story that you think you're telling me. But it's like, if you're telling someone, hey, do you know she stands for this and this and this, and they've never heard of it before, that is such an abysmal failure on the part of the people who are supposed to be relaying this information to the masses. And it's honestly, it's depressing. That's what it is.
Yep, they're going to have to start talking about this soon. I mean, this blitz aspect of this, like, ultimately it's a campaign that's a sprint. I saw some people write about how it's almost more like one of the European elections than it is a traditional American election. This 3-month sprint that they're doing right now, they are going to have to start answering that. I watched the first their joint rallies that they did last week in the swing states. And a couple of things stood out to me. Number one, their stump speeches are, they can tailor it a little bit, but pretty standard. And I was actually talking with Andrew Kraft over at Live Now from Fox. They do some great work over there. And he was one of the campaign embeds back in 2020 when she was running the first time. And he was talking about how much her speech is almost exactly the same as it was that time. And this is our job as reporters, to go and say, all right, What do you mean? I mean, is this Medicare for all?
So the speech back in 2020, is that what you're saying, that it mirrors the same speech now?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what Andrew's telling me. I want to get out over my skis because I actually want to talk to him about this for another thing.
I think it's fascinating because you see these ads right now where they play, this is what she said in Michigan, here's what she said. But if you could actually show that here's what she said 4 years ago too, that would show that she actually, I mean, it would kind of undercut her whole, I've changed my position, if you could find the common thread, right?
Yeah, it's going to be, I mean, in some ways, you look at this, it reminds me a lot of the Trump-Pence dynamic, which we've talked about a number of times before. Trump is a politician who controls communications by flooding, by throwing a lot of things out there. But the traditional politician model is restraint and very careful language and leaving exits, leaving a lot of exit ramps, as we say. And she's more in that traditional mold. But you got to ask, you say, all right, okay, you're going to be tough on the border. What exactly does that mean? Is this the Langford bill that, is that what we're talking about? How many Border Patrol agents are we talking about? You talk about expanding healthcare. How does that look? We went through that once before about 15 years ago. How does this actually come about? And I think it's going to be tougher once this gets to a broader dynamic inside the campaign. Is this momentum, is this energy that we're seeing right now, is it a sugar rush or is it genuine momentum? If that stump speech starts to die off, and stump speeches don't tend to do very well over long spans of time, if that starts to drop off, that depression of energy will leave some openings to start being like, all right, what does this mean? What do you mean here?
Julie, I want to switch the gears to Tim Walz.
That's exactly where I was going to go with this.
Oh, look at that. Wow. But, here's where I want to go. You tell me. I thought it was funny this week. There's reporting on Tim Walz that he literally has zero investments.
Yes.
He has no money. Now, here's the thing that's so funny. First of all, Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank went after him and said he was the best governor for states besides Minnesota because of how he has demolished the job market in Minnesota. I think it's a little tongue-in-cheek there. And that all the jobs move. But the thing that I thought was interesting about Tim Walz, when you realize, that he has nothing, is I want to play this clip that has gotten a lot of attention because he talks about, well, I'll play it for you. It's about socialism and Tim Walz. Let me play what it is right here and then have you guys react.
Don't ever shy away from our progressive values. One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness. Just do the damn work.
One person's socialism is another person's neighborliness. Now, here's why it's important, right? We talked about the media at the front of this thing. Okay, this is Axios again, and this is what they write. Tim Walz and Warren Buffett, two genial sons of the Midwest, exemplify the socialist and capitalist visions of financial security. Waltz owns no stock, not even in mutual funds or ETFs. His net worth is in the low six digits. Buffett owns shares worth $136 billion. Waltz lives in public housing and owns no real estate. He and his wife earned $166,719 in 2022, a decent middle-class salary, but not one that affords luxuries for a family of four. The big picture, and it says, Waltz exemplifies how neither wealth nor high income is necessary to live a happy and fulfilling life with great success. They're mainstreaming his vision of socialism, saying it's okay. You don't need to do well. You just need government housing and a government job, and you can be happy.
That's right. He is on the Biden plan. You are a government official for your entire career, and the government will take care of you. That is what he is conveying to the American people. I do want to say I find Waltz's finances to be very strange. The fact that he doesn't have he doesn't own much, and he doesn't have many investments, and he doesn't really.
But he doesn't believe in it.
He doesn't believe in it. But I think coupled with, I am concerned about his relationship with China. He has been there dozens of times. I don't know the total number, but it is sky high. I want to know what his relationship is with China. I want to know what he was doing over there. I know he was running educational programs, but I find this a little weird. And I think there needs to be more investigation into that, at least a little bit of curiosity. But going back to your original question, you talked about this poll that MRC did where people 70-something% don't really know who these people are. If I were advising this campaign, I would say keep it that way as long as you can.
Right.
There are some shady things going on. I think these people have we know Kamala has flip-flopped all over the place. We know that Waltz is not this cuddly, neighborly grandfather figure. What he did during COVID, what he did to businesses in Minnesota, what the things that he wants for illegal immigrants, serving that population over the citizens of Minnesota. There are some pretty monstrous things coming out about Tim Walz, how he exaggerated his military career. So again,
hey, did anyone watch Homeland? Remember that show? I think it's Showtime. Did anyone ever?
Yeah.
Do you remember how the VP candidate had been an enlisted military member? He got captive, and then they found out that he's like a mole
he was a Manchurian candidate.
Manchurian candidate. You think Tim Walz is the Manchurian candidate?
I just think that there are questions that are not being examined. I think there are things about him that are not. I think he was picked without proper vetting. I think Kamala said, "I want him." Grace, I don't know if you want to add on to that, but I think that there was not proper vetting. I think there are questions about his finances and about his relationship with China. And with a press like this that slobbers, it's a full body massage all the time. I don't know if we'll get answers. And that scares me.
Yeah, I agree that there probably wasn't that much vetting, or maybe it's just arrogance where they don't think it's going to matter. But this is making me think. So, Sean, you said, do you think they want to define her, or does she want to be everything to everyone? So what's weird about it is, in a lot of times when you're dealing with Democrats and this kind of woke culture ideology that's being pushed, the ambiguity of things or the changing of definitions is the point. You confuse people. They don't really know what you stand for, and then maybe they'll vote for you. And I think for Kamala Harris, that makes sense, where now she's flip-flopping and they're going to say she's recalibrating her positions. Politico said she promises to be tougher on immigration without actually having to explain herself. She's just sending everyone out to explain things for her. But that's why the Walz pick is so weird to me, because if you want to convince people that you're kind of this amorphous candidate who can be moderate but can be progressive, and it totally depends on the day, and you're a chameleon, and when you're talking to this group, you're one way, and when you're talking to this group, you're another. He's not the guy you pick to be this changing character depending on the crowd, because he is, like in that cut you just played, he said, don't shy away from our progressive agenda. It's a weird choice. If you're trying to convince people that voted for Joe Biden because they thought he was moderate, they got like tricked into thinking he's grandpa and he's, all these things. If that's the group you're going after and you're trying to pull this Trojan horse thing again, these are the worst two people to choose, because beyond the vibes and beyond the noise, their actual records and what they've done are very clear cut. There's really no ambiguity there, no matter how much they want to promote it.
Tom, there was a DC Examiner unearthed this footage. It says that, Waltz called Hitler promoting Iman Assad Zaman a, quote, master teacher who offered Waltz lessons over the time that they, quote, spent together.
I would like to, first of all, say thank you to Imam. I am a teacher, so when I see a master teacher, I know it. And over the time we've spent together, one of the things I've had the privilege of is seeing the things in life through the eye of a master teacher.
That if this was Trump, you think about all the accusations that he dined with a white supremacist, that he said this and that about Hitler. How is that not getting attention? That you've got this guy Waltz, as Grace put it out, this should have come out in vetting. But here is him praising a guy. Now, CNN, in one of the interviews, pressed them a little, but they haven't gotten much pushback for this at all.
Well, that's a great question. Yeah, I do remember reading that Examiner piece, and that was big, and it really gets to one of these fractures that we see in the Democratic Party right now, really exacerbated by October 7th and the Israel-Hamas war. It is, just go back to real quick, Grace was saying, I just want to build on that for a second. What's going on here with Waltz. And I think because I was actually texting with some friends about this earlier today. What's going on there, I think, is we're seeing now that the energy levels are so high that it's both sides are quote unquote based. You have your bases are activated now, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is the worst for wear out of all that. Start tacking to the middle, very traditional. So potentially then you have your running mate be the more lefty or the more righty, and then let the top of the ticket play to the middle. Cribbing the taxes, no taxes on tips, for instance, tossing that one out there. I don't know if it works though. And again, this guy gets back to the, will they interact with the press? Will they engage with us? Because eventually people, we live this stuff. We're down here in the weeds. Right. Eventually the public's checking back in. That's one of the big things that we've seen in the polling. People are watching again, and especially after Labor Day, and they're going to start hearing these stump speeches, and they're going to be like, hey, yeah, I don't know. Like, what does this mean exactly? They're going to start this is going to be, this is why you talk with the press. If you're a politician, I'm going to be self-serving here. Come on the 24 site pod. All right. If you're the Harris campaign, come on down. All right.
All right. Yeah, good try.
Chicago,
I like the plug.
by.
That's smart. See, this is why, at least be selfish about it. And I'm being serious. If I were the AP, I'd be like, hey, come to our venue. So it should be good for business. It's ridiculous. I wish I had time because I wanted to bring up the RFK stuff because the Democrats had him kicked off the New York ballot. It may have further repercussions, and I think that could really be interesting. Not a good week for RFK. All right. Well, I wish we had more time to go through this. We don't. Thank you guys for being here. As I said earlier, we'll break down the road to 270 tomorrow on the show. Make sure you bookmark it. That's why you always want to hit the notification button, subscribe, YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, iHeart, wherever you get your podcast. Next week, if you want to get ready for that, we're going to really start to break down the DNC. Big show tomorrow. But then the DNC next week, Biden start kicking it off, then Obama, then Walz and Harris. So we're going to have a ton of analysis all week long. We'll see you back here tomorrow on the Sean Spicer Show. As I said at the outset, please always join us at 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern for the premiere. I'll be on the morning meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. as well. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow. Well, if you enjoyed this content, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and click the notification bell to get more.